You're listening to Kidney Transplant Conversations. If you've never been to the Transplant Games of America, there's much in this episode which might persuade anyone connected to any type of transplant to consider finding a local team and participating. And if you have attended, this episode might provide you with an uplifting reminder of all the good times you had at this wonderful event. All views and opinions expressed in the podcast reflect those of the participants. The first World Transplant Games on record were back in 1978 in England and were organised to encourage patients with a transplant to exercise after surgery. And of course, those early advances in medications meant that the 1970s saw a very significant growth in the number of transplants taking place. These games inspired interest in the United States, and the first US Transplant Games kicked off 12 years later in Indianapolis in 1990, hosted by the National Kidney Foundation with seed funding from the company now known as Novartis. And the games continued every 2 years. In 2012, National Kidney Foundation handed over leadership of the Games to Transplant Games of America, with leadership from Bill Ryan, and now Summer Games are held in even-numbered years. If you are interested in more details, a great report called Transplant Games Promote Donation, Showcase Healthy Recipients was written by Sue Pondrum in the American Journal of Transplantation, and this has been a source for some of the historical facts I'm mentioning here. So since then, Transplant Games around the world have created an incredible sense of community for thousands of transplant recipients, and increasingly give living donors the opportunity to show the world that you can rock one kidney and do everything you ever did before, and more. Before the COVID pandemic, as many as 5,000 people attended each of the Transplant Games of America. Now, those numbers are down as people rebuild their teams and learn to negotiate the health concerns of travel and large groups following the pandemic. But the San Diego Games were great regardless of those reduced numbers. Here are 5 things I experienced attending my first Transplant Games of America in San Diego. Number 1. The most incredible, welcoming, social, and supportive event I ever attended. If you are connected to transplants in any way, then you're already a member of this club, and the mutual respect and support is everywhere at the Transplant Games of America. Number 2, the most diverse and inclusive event I ever attended. Every kind of people are there, every race, ethnicity, age. Every US state is represented through a total of around 50 teams, and this event also includes a celebration of local indigenous culture. This is Southern California in the case of San Diego, and there's a rich history that is represented during the event. 3. For family members who've lost someone close to them in one of life's tragic moments, and then gone on to allow their loved ones' organs to save other lives, the Transplant Games gives them a place to tell their story, celebrate life, and it gives meaning to their loss. Number 4. The Transplant Games includes many activities, as much about community and learning as they are about friendly competition. There's a steady succession of happenings on the event stage, including inspirational speakers and musical performances, and even a talent show, and tributes to donors, moments to reflect on loss. There are educational workshops, there are informative exhibition booths for support organizations, and alongside the popular team events such as basketball and pickleball, table tennis, volleyball, there are things like walks, poker, trivia, a cornhole competition, darts, and a fabulous parade. There's something for everyone. And number 5, the pins. Forget Pokemon. Pin trading is where the action is at the Transplant Games of America. Bring your team pins and trade them for at least 50 that you can collect. It's all about connecting with people from all over America who share in some way your experience of transplant. For every journey, you need a guide. As they say, to travel fast, you go alone, but to travel far, go with company. In my case, I fell in with Team North Carolina. They're a passionate and supportive group of competitors who took some time to show me the ropes and talk about their experiences for the podcast as well. Team North Carolina member Daryl shared with me something of a primer for what to expect and what the games have meant to him over the years.
Oh, the Transplant Games of America. It's just a wonderful gathering of people who are just like you. And I think the thing that I've really found out, they told me you're going to need a support system when you go through this. You can't do this by yourself. You need somebody who's going to be there with you. And I didn't understand that at first. I said, well, gee, I've got plenty of friends. If I need to go to the doctor, somebody will drive me to the doctor. And my doctor says, no, that's not what we're talking about. Some days you're going to need somebody who's going to feed you. Then some days you're going to need somebody to change your pants. Some days you're going to need somebody to drive you somewhere, but it's deeper than that. And I began to understand that. But the Transplant Games takes that to another level. Even though your support system is there with you, they try hard to understand you. When you're talking to somebody who's been through what you've been through, that takes it to that next level.
So I got to say thank you to the North Carolina team. You're in North Carolina, right? I got to say thank you for giving me such a warm welcome. I'm obviously not from North Carolina originally, although I've spent some time in Raleigh. But I got to see you play basketball last night at 7 p.m. and it was a phenomenal game. Tell me about that.
That was great. And first of all, welcome from North Carolina. We're a welcoming state. Everybody there is. And you have to remember also, basketball in North Carolina, that's the ACC. We're talking about UNC. We're talking about Duke University. We're talking about North Carolina State. We have a number of HBCUs in North Carolina. Strong basketball city. But first, we were defending the silver medal. And that was my theme coming into, we must defend our silver medal.
From when?
That was 2018 in Salt Lake City. And I don't want to say we didn't have a strong team. However, we pulled through to get that silver medal. And so we're kind of thinking about that. But I think also it's just that drive. And I think you see it from everybody, that drive. We got a little behind at the beginning of the game. And then it was like, okay, let's pull this through. And you do that without even talking about it. You have to you just know, okay, you ready? Let's go. Here we go. But it was a double overtime win. So, and we had a small team. It's 3-on-3, and we only had 4 people on the team. So we had one person who's coming in just to give us a breather. But it was just great again. And it was that team victory to come together, though. It started out with me, the sports, the athletics, and then the rest of the games was the extra gravy. However, when I've come back this time, I think it's changed quite a bit. And I think part of that is because this old body is just seeing its day. In your younger days when you're playing sports and you don't get proper rehab, it comes back to you later on. And so that's the number one thing. You come to face that, the truth of that. But also, from day one since I got here, I've been talking to so many people. I've met so many people. There's so many people that you relate to. Your stories are similar. And not that your stories are similar, but the way you got here and how you handle being here is what, and it's still inspiring to you, even though everybody has a story, but everybody's story is inspiring. No matter how difficult you think yours was, there's somebody else who's more difficult. And no matter how much you think you've pulled through, there's somebody else who's pulled through also. And no matter how easy you think yours was, there's somebody else over there who's had just an easy time also. So you can relate to somebody, and we all come together. It's magic in the air. And when we take that back to the sports, I use the example always. It's like it's a mini Olympics. We're competing. There are medals that we're giving away medals here. But it's not cutthroat competition because we all that thought is like, look, I'm not even supposed to be here, okay? So let's just have some fun with this. And I noticed last night again, it was hard competition. It was double overtime. People were tired, and there were a couple of calls there sometimes. I don't know, kind of like, but after the game, man, you just meshed right together in love and in gratitude. Yeah. Just being together. Because one of the themes, and I think this is a theme that we've come up with, and when I say we, I mean everybody in the community, there is life after transplant. And I take that in my own personal situation as I was getting ready, going through the period of getting on the list. My coordinator just kind of needled me a lot because I worked on cruise ships. It's a happy life, man. And she would tell me all the time, you're not going to be cruising the seas on that cruise ship anymore. What are you going to do now? And that was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? And someone told me about the transplant games. And as I looked at the transplant games, it's like, yeah, I think I want to do that. I think I want to do that. And then I got here and just, oh my God. And you think of, there's an estimated group of 8,000 people. No matter which one it is, you have something in common. You bond with any 8,000 that you're privileged enough to be able to touch. It's a built-in communication thing. You don't meet strangers. We're all here the same. It's like I've been knowing you all my life.
There's also a strong education component.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because you're learning about recovery of your organ, how to take care of your organ. You're learning about the things of what got you here. And we don't keep that within ourselves. We're telling other people too, because that gratitude makes you want to give it away. I've heard a term once before. You can't keep it unless you give it away. And that's something I've come to understand, that you want to tell people. One of the most fascinating things is when I got here, there was a couple that kind of gravitated to me. And for whatever reason, we just kind of stuck together. And after a while, we started talking. So I asked him, so what's your organ? He goes, I'm on the waiting list. I'm waiting for a liver. And I wanted to talk to someone who's had a liver transplant to know what it's like. And after we'd been together for a while and we parted ways, and he said to me, because I've spent this time with you, because I've talked to you, I've seen your energy, I've seen your spirit, I just know I'm going to be all right. That's fulfilling. That's fulfilling. I went to the multicultural workshop, number one, which I'm very much interested in because I know in my community, it's difficult sometimes to get people to become donors, to understand what donation means and transplant means. And so to hear someone, and especially to hear someone who's played professional football, how he's been able to use that platform to reach people and how people are listening to him. So it gives me ideas of how I can reach out to people. It's outstanding.
When you get back to North Carolina, are you going to continue your educational activities?
Yes, I will. Yes. And as a matter of fact, I kind of started one before we left. I know the moderator of an association of churches. And so I had this great thought of, let's go to him. And if we get to him, maybe we can get into all of the churches. So we did a program for him. And it just turned, nobody showed up for the program. And the person I was working with said, let's just do it anyway. Just like we were going to do it if we had 1,000 people here. And we did. And it was basically the pastor and two of his deacons. And we touched him in a way that he said he's going to take his 5th Sunday. And there were 5 of us on a panel. But for the 5th Sunday of the month, he was going to invite each one of us back individually to tell our story, just like we did there. And it's going to help his people. And so he's now, from that, starting a health awareness part of his ministry. And that, again, you just can't describe that. That is fulfilling. And that's the gratitude that we feel that we give after the gratitude of someone giving us life.
And you told me you have a connection to Shelby in North Carolina?
Yes, I'm from Shelby, North Carolina. We're quite famous. Let's go back to the athletics again. David Thompson from North Carolina State. You'll remember David Thompson and quite a few other athletes from Shelby, North Carolina. I've been fortunate enough to travel quite a bit. I traveled quite a bit in the military. I was in the Navy, spent 10 years in the Navy, traveling the world. I worked on cruise ships. I worked for a couple of major cruise lines. For about 15 years, I worked on ships again, traveling the world. But there's still that thing about Shelby, about North Carolina in my heart. It brings me back to North Carolina.
What are you doing for organ donation in Shelby?
I give presentations. And I think one of the most successful presentations that I was able to give was to go to my home church. Now, keep in mind, I'm from Shelby. I left Shelby at a young age and was gone for probably 30 years. But I'm coming back. I know people. And as I started to get sick, I kind of gravitated back home because my mother was getting ill at the same time. My uncle was getting ill. So I was kind of taking care of them. And so in my home church, they know me from growing up. They know how vibrant I am, all of the sports and everything that I played. As I was coming back, they saw me slowly get sick. And then they saw me at the bottom when I was really sick. And when I first came out of the hospital, I went into transplant surgery at 185 pounds. I came out at 135 pounds. So they saw that, oh my God, what happened to him? Is he going to make it? Then they saw me get well. So the story becomes a little more true to them because they actually saw it. And they'll listen to the story from me rather than listening to somebody who just pops up to give them the story because they know me. It's that bond of knowing someone. And again, to see me come through it from being at the top to that sink to the bottom and then to come back again. And that's probably one of the most fulfilling things. I gave a presentation at church one Sunday. Pastor gave me 20 minutes and it probably ran into 30 minutes. But at the end of it, 15 people signed up to be donors. So that again, that's the fulfillment of it.
You don't know better than that. Come on now. Just let me know. I'll stop with one injury.
On the previous evening, I joined Team North Carolina as they gathered for their upcoming basketball match, which proved to be a tight and exciting duel with the Mountain West team from Utah and Idaho. There's a great atmosphere in the crowd, and team member John talked to me about the basketball tournament and why being here is so important to him.
So I'm here at my first Transplant Games, and the main reason I'm coming out here is just to kind of celebrate my second chance at life and honor my kidney donor, my living kidney donor. So we are Team North Carolina. So we've got 9 athletes with us, from kidney recipients to heart recipients to lung recipients, and sometimes even liver and kidney recipients. So we're a mixed bag, but we're all celebrating the common theme as just getting back out there and living life. So we're at the start of the basketball event, and so Team North Carolina has a men's team competing tonight, and we're starting off at our first game in about 45 minutes or so, and we're playing Mountain West, Utah and Idaho. So we're getting ready for our game tonight. But Team North Carolina was the silver medal in the 2018 game, so we got a lot to uphold and lot to back up this time. Gotta get it out, get it out. You're not back yet, you're not back. Yeah, so it's a 3-on-3 half-court basketball game. Yeah, so it's a 2 15-minute halves, and then we go through pool play and then an elimination bracket. So it's a 2-night event. So we've got possibly 2 games tonight, and then they'll finish the bracket up tomorrow night. So yeah, this is one of the most popular events.
I'm here supporting my daughter, Felicia Price.
What do you think?
Felicia was diagnosed with kidney disease in 2010 and received a kidney in 2016. I'm here to support her.
And this is Felicia.
And this is Felicia.
Hi, I'm Felicia.
How are you, Andy?
I am loving the games. This is my second Transplant Games of America. Yes. Well, technically third, because we did do a virtual games in 2020.
Yes.
We're so excited. We were on the front page of the paper.
Which paper?
The San Diego Union Tribune. That sounds about right. Yeah. It was our teammate Yvette. She was on the front. Daryl was in the corner, and John's sign saying thank you to his donor all made the front page.
Yes.
That's fabulous.
That's from the parade.
Wonderful.
Right now, we're waiting to win, because we got silver last time. So we're waiting to win the basketball tournament. I can't see which team we're playing right now.
You don't know who.
Okay, so we're waiting to beat Mississippi in the basketball game. So we're just anxiously awaiting that. We have about 30 minutes time. So we're here supporting. The great thing about the games is when you're not competing is to support your teammates.
Absolutely.
Well, in the end, Team North Carolina did not win basketball gold this time around. Maybe next time. Big thank you to all the members of Team North Carolina, and especially Daryl, John, Phyllis, and Felicia for their interviews. And thank you to the Transplant Games of America for putting on an amazing event. In our next episode, meet more attendees of the Transplant Games of America in San Diego, including donors, recipients, family members, and support organizations. Until then, be safe, be well. Thanks for listening to Kidney Transplant Conversations. Copyright Project Advocacy 2023.